Hey everyone! In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you 3 fun techniques in 8 minutes, not sped up. I'm using the Sitting Here stamp set, Basket of Wishes, and Bookcase Builder from Stampin' Up. This is Basket of Wishes, and I have that set up on my Mini Misti. And I'm inking just the big basket image in Distress Ink Vintage Photo, because the first technique that I'm going to do is the Vintage Watercolor technique with Distress Ink and the Elegant Writer pen. And you'll remember from my other videos that this is a pigment pen that is water soluble, and it separates into several different colors when you get it wet. So it starts out as black, and then you can get sort of what I describe as a sage color, sort of a green blue, and also a pink, depending on how much water you add. So the second technique is no line watercolor. I'm going to go ahead and obscure the stamp line images just with water and a silver brush. I'm adding no color. So the colors that you see in the basket are just the Vintage Photo Distress Ink and the colors from the Elegant Writer. Here, one of the things that No Line Watercolor allows me to do is smooth out this image just a little bit. The original image has a lot of real sketchy lines, and I can turn those into shading. So no matter what the style of the stamp that you start with, there's always a technique that allows you to change it into a different style. And that's sort of my thing with stamping. That's what I like to do, is really change an image from one style to another, just to show you how versatile every stamp can be. Not that you shouldn't buy all the stamps, because we all shouldn't buy all the stamps, but it does help you get a little bit more mileage out of your stamp images. Whereas I think sometimes we look at a stamp and we say, oh, that's not my style, I'm not going to buy it. I buy all kinds of stamps that aren't my style, just as a challenge to see if I can change the way it looks. So you can see this one starts to look much more vintagey. Much more sort of elegant than what I would describe as kind of a country style in the original image. And now you're seeing some of that sage green, blue, or spruce maybe. Maybe spruce is a better description of this color that comes out of the Elegant Writer pen. And I'm just going to build a little bit of a shadow underneath the basket, just with the extra Elegant Writer and the Vintage Photo that is still soluble from my initial application of the ink to the paper. The Elegant Writer you can move for quite a while until you've gotten all the color out of it. Now I'll set this a little bit with my heat gun before I move on to the next part. I don't recommend heating things up in the Misti, even though I always do it on my video. For one thing, heat will make the magnets no longer magnetic. And also, you really don't want to heat plastic and the foam. But when I'm doing videos, I forget and I do bad things. So do what I say, not what I do. Now I'll flip this in my Misti because I'm going to add another stamp image, and I'll just put a Post-it note in the corner because that way I don't have to clean my stamp and I won't mess up the top of my card. This is watercolor paper, by the way. Fabriano Cold Press, my favorite. And now I'm taking the little kitty from Sitting Here. I love this little cat. And this cat is going to sit in the basket with the help of some Post-it masking tape. So I've done vintage watercolor, I've done no line watercolor, which I will continue the no line watercolor with the kitty, and this is even easier. Again, this is Vintage Photo Distress Ink. And I wanted to make the kitty orange. Every time I've colored this cat, I've made him orange. I don't know what that's all about. He looks like an orange tabby to me. And I'm adding a tiny bit of deep yellow Magello watercolor just to bring out the orange in the Vintage Photo. And I'm really being careful to leave the details of his face and some of his little stripes. So I'm just activating the ink a little bit, but not too much. Not like I normally do in no line watercolor where the line completely disappears. Here I still want you to be able to see his eyes, his nose, and his mouth without over stamping him again. So I'll just give enough water that you can see that he's an orange tabby. Now I'll take a stamped image of him that I have on a Post-it note and get him ready for the third technique. Now the third technique is a technique that I remember learning, gosh, it was one of the earliest kind of wow techniques that I remember learning. I learned it from, I believe, the lady that I signed up with for Stampin' Up! It was in one of her classes. And this technique is called the smackdown technique. And I've actually done this on several swaps in the last few years because it's a technique that people forget about it. But I was reminded of it at an art impressions class at Creativation. And they love to do this technique with watercolor. So what you do is you stamp an image and then lightly stamp it a couple more times around it. And Art Impressions has some beautiful stamps that they teach this watercolor technique with. It's especially good for botanicals and florals because it gives the impression that there's more plant material than there is. And it also softens it a little bit. This stamp is actually a pretty graphic stamp. And doing this smackdown technique makes it softer and more fuzzy. And then I add to that soft fuzziness with my paintbrush and watercolor. And my Art Impression stamps are not arriving till today. So I couldn't do it with their actual stamps that I saw examples of at Creativation. But you can do this with any stamp that you have, any little grassy floral stamp. And it's really fun and makes for a fun, easy watercolor. So that real-time card only took 8 minutes and had 3 techniques, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching.